Hello everybody. Hey ultimate family. Welcome to Being Chumba with this little man over here. Show your face. Say hello. Hello. Today we're going to do story time as I get ready for an event. So come along with me, come along with me, come along with me as I tell you about my travel experiences from a time when I was younger, you know? Okay, let's go. So what I'm doing right now is I'm gonna put on my wig cap, but as we do that, let me tell you about this one time this one time we traveled to Uganda with my dad, and it was just me, my brother, my sister, and my dad. And we were going to Mbale, Uganda. And I don't know if it was on our way back or it was on our way there that something happened. So what happened was, you know how when you're traveling they make stops? So we stopped on the road. On the way we stopped to get some fries and whatever food that whoever was hungry needed to eat, and it was in the middle of the night. It was like at 3 a.m. and so we got our fries. So it was like at a stop, people are rushing, you're getting your food and you move so that the next person behind you in queue can get whatever they need to get. And then I got my food, I got my fries, and I think it was sausage or chicken or something, but everybody had their fries, and my dad said, do not put salt in your fries, do not add salt. I, being who I was at that time, thought this thing doesn't have salt, so I'm gonna sneak. So they used to have like a bottle, it was a bottle like this, and they would put they would pierce at the top, right? So instead of a pierce like this which we're seeing here, they would pierce the top here. And so you put the salt and you just sprinkle whatever you need and you put it back, right? So just like a salt shaker, but a homemade one, a makeshift one. And so I took the thing before my dad could see, and I was trying to sprinkle, right? I'm sprinkling. And guess what? This thing was not well closed. So, oh my God! It all came out. It's like this, let's say I turned this upside down and this was not well tightened by the person who used it before me. And I did this, and you know, I was pressing so that I can do as quickly as possible before my dad notices. And guess what happened? This fell off and all the salt poured on my, well, maybe not all, but a lot of salt poured on my fries. And now, of course, my dad turned around and now everybody's looking at us, and now I'm like, everybody's looking at us, and I'm like, now I can't hide the fact that I was gonna do that. I was gonna steal some salt. Steal some salt to put in my fries. Actually, you gotta know this. I grew up with parents who were very strict. So my dad was very strict. So I think we ended up mixing up the fries, everybody's fries together or something, and of course that was a whole mess because it's the middle of the night and you guys are going back into the car, and now you have to mix up fries because one person was dumb enough to think that they could just sneak salt on the fries, and that dumb person was me at the time. And do you guys see how this eyebrow looks? Can you see here? Can you see? Can you see? You see? I trimmed my eyebrows and I made a mistake with that one, which is so not me because I am always like the person who's so big on how eyebrows need to be done. But well, it happens sometimes. So while that's setting, and I just wanted to like stick a little bit, and then I'm gonna put the wig, and then we're gonna spray the glue again and do the edges, and then lay it and wait for it to whatever while we do our makeup. I just want to start with my eyebrows because I love my eyebrows done right, okay? I love having my eyebrows done right. And so we're just gonna start with the eyebrows as we wait for this to like dry a little bit. Okay, so Now let me tell you about another time when we were using a bus. It used to be called a Kamba. It was again from Kenya to Uganda, and this time it was me, my brother, my sister, and my mom. Not my dad this time, my mom. And we were going to Uganda for holidays, for vacation. And so whenever, okay, so I don't know if you guys have traveled by bus from one country to the other, but when you're traveling, especially like at least from Kenya to Uganda, which is an example I can give because I traveled from Kenya to Uganda by public transport so many times. When you get to the border, just like at the airport, when you have to enter, you have to go through immigration, right? When you get to the Kenyan border in Malaba or Busia or wherever, which is like the border towns, you will stop and you will all get down, you will all alight the bus. Actually, they never used to make us take out our bags or anything, just whatever is in your hand luggage. So you come out with it with all your passport, travel documentation, and you go through the Kenyan side to get an exit stamp put on your passport. And then you guys walk because they search your bags. So the bus goes and waits for you guys on the other side. And so you walk from the Kenyan side, you cross, and it's like a fence. So it's like a gate. Okay, let's say you have alighted somewhere here, and it's a long line of vehicles. You alight before your vehicle gets right to the border gate, right? So you alight here, you come down, you go into the immigration office. The immigration offices on the Kenyan side are right next to where you alighted. And when you're done there, you don't come back out here. You now go through, there's a door that leads you to the next gate. And it's like a passenger gate, a pedestrian gate, because the cars are gonna go straight ahead through the road. But there's like a pedestrian walk, and then you go through that door. It's like a gate. They search your stuff, which you're carrying, like your bags and whatever. And then you get out of the searched areas, and then you have to walk honestly like a quarter of a mile. You cross and go now to the Ugandan immigration. And so the Ugandan immigration, you go in there, again they search your stuff, and then they stamp your passport to enter Uganda, and then you now enter your bus. It's waiting for you on the other side, and you can only get to your bus to enter it if you've gone through here, because there's like fences that block you from actually getting on the bus until you've gone through that path that they've set, right? So whenever you do that, because it's a long trip, because like from Nairobi to Malaba, it was 12 hours, 10 to 12 hours. So you've probably traveled all night or all day. So that day we had traveled all night, and this was early in the morning that we got to Malaba border. And so we all got there, and then they said people can go and use the bathrooms. So you were to use the bathrooms, buy what you want. It's like an hour. They give you guys an hour because not everybody's gonna clear at the same time. And that gives you enough time to buy breakfast or whatever you want to buy on the road. You've got people with kids, like my mom had us with her, and they want to use bathrooms. You're an entire family. It's gonna take a while. But for some reason, something happened, and we entered the car, the bus, me, my brother, my sister, and we were seated right at the front, right behind the driver, right? And we were seated there. It was comfortable. I loved it. I love traveling at night. Up to today, I love traveling at night, especially if I'm not the one driving. So we get into the car, the bus, and everybody's on the bus, but where's my mother? The bus was literally leaving. Then I think one of us, either my sister, my brother, or me, we go like, wait, my mom is not on the bus, and we start yelling, and now everybody's like, "Ako happy with your mama?" It's Swahili to ask, where is that woman? And it became a whole fracas because we didn't know where our mother was. I do not know where my mom was. I do not remember exactly the situation that led to my mom not being on the bus and we were on the bus alone. But we were like, wait a minute, we just entered this bus. So I think my mom was still clearing us through immigration, but since we were kids, they probably didn't even bother asking us who we were with, and so they just let us slide through the whatever, and we entered our bus, and we just followed people who we knew were on our bus, and we went into the bus. And then when we got into the bus, our mom was still behind, and she was probably still lined up, because interestingly, she joined us. Like, I think it took us like a good 10-20 minutes for the entire bus to figure out where she was. I don't remember the entire details, but that's just another story from our many trips. Now I'm gonna tell you another story from my trip with my son to Rwanda. And we had to go again through the Ugandan border. I've made a lot of trips because also I lived in Uganda for 2 years, and my parents and my son were living in Kenya. So that made me have to travel in between whenever I had a break or whatever. When I was at school, I had breaks and I would come back to Uganda. Alright, now this other story is of a time that I was traveling to Rwanda all by myself with my son. So this one time I made plans to go and visit a family friend of ours in Rwanda, Kigali, Rwanda, with my son. I was like, oh, my son needs to experience life. We need to travel, we need to do this. And so we started making all the arrangements that are needed. I went to the Ugandan embassy. They told me no, as long as you are legally in Kenya as a foreigner in Kenya, but you have this permanent residency where I was a student at the time. So as long as you're a student in Kenya, you can travel to any of the East African countries with your visa, right? And so I also looked, and they said children under 13, or was it 6 or something? I don't even remember what it was. But anyway, JP qualified. Children under that age qualified to travel through Uganda to Rwanda without a visa. So to Rwanda they could enter without a visa. So I assumed, that since my son is my dependent and it says that he can enter Rwanda without a visa, I'll just pay for my own visa or something like that. There was just something I misunderstood about the whole situation. We were taking public transport again through Uganda to Rwanda. And so we stopped, we got to we got to Busia, just like I explained to you how it happens, where you stop to get your information taken, your whatever stamped and all that. When we stopped in the Kenyan side of the border, guess what happened? They stopped us and said, how can they prove that I'm the mother of this child because I do not have proper travel documentation for them? I'm like, what do you mean? Here's a copy of his birth certificate. I had carried that. Here's his original passport. It's right here with me. And I went to the Ugandan embassy before I left Kenya because I knew I was going to go through Uganda. And they told me I do not need any documentation. I do not need any documentation for my son to go through Uganda. And Rwanda, I will just have to pay when I get there this amount of money. And he is legal here in Kenya. This is the proof. He's my dependent. Like, they just were like refusing completely. And we had traveled again all night because, like I told you, I love traveling at night, especially on that road to Uganda. I love it at night because it's very calm. Everybody's asleep and you just enjoy the breeze and the whatever, and you're crossing the country. When I'm coming back, I love traveling during the day, but when I'm going to Uganda, I love traveling at night for some reason. So we ended up being left by the bus. We ended up being left by our bus because they're not going to wait for you. They're like, well, you should have made your arrangements, because they make it very clear on their website that before you book a ticket, find out from the countries that you're going to all the necessary documentation. So they don't care about all that. And they told me that if I sort it out, what can happen is whoever the next bus that comes by that area will carry us. So I was upset. Now this is the kicker. Jay and I started crying. I started crying. JP was crying. We were all crying at the immigration, at the border. We were seated down. I started crying. I'm like, what do you mean? This is my son. And I have all this proof. And I was calling my dad to send even more proof, more evidence, anything that was just a photocopy. I'm like, please send. I'm just like crying. And then now it changed to, oh, your child was born in Kenya? I said, yeah, my child was born in Kenya. Oh, well, how do we know that you're not just trafficking kids and you're just taking a Kenyan child to Rwanda to sell or something? They just started coming up with stuff. And I was like, well, you can take my child on his own and ask him questions. I mean, my son was not a toddler who couldn't speak. He was like, he was about 5 or 6. So I said, well, you can ask him any questions you have for him, and I don't even need to be there. And they started asking him, who is this woman to you? How do you know this woman? Blah, 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 blah. I was just like, oh my God. And then they said, well, the only person who can legally allow you to enter now, to pass Kenya, not Uganda, Kenya, to leave Kenya. I'm like, okay, then let me go. If I go to Uganda and they send me back, that's fine. But let me first leave your country. Why are you guys refusing me to leave? They just started giving me stories about how I could be a trafficker. This is the worst travel experience I've ever had. Okay? And I have traveled. But this was the worst travel experience. Because now I had to prove that my child was my child. And I had his birth certificate with me. He had his passport. I had mine. He carries my last name. But here, I had to be proving extra stuff just because some person just decided we were not gonna cross. And then finally they go like, oh, well, whoever can let you go into the country legally, who can let you leave the country legally, and then you get into Uganda without any problems, is our boss. But he does not work night shift, and he comes in for day shift, and he only comes in around 8 or 9 a.m. or something like that. I was like, what? And now I've missed my bus. And the next one, they told me the next one was also gonna get there around 8 or 9. I'm like, how am I sure you guys are gonna let me go? And blah, blah, blah. They were like, well, you can go, but your child is not leaving. Yeah, it got to a point where somebody actually told me that. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? The point of this trip was for my son to have an experience. Secondly, one mother leaves their child at the border and just leaves with people I don't know. I don't care whether you are immigration people, whether you work for the government. I don't know you. And why would I be leaving my child? Can you get that? Like, leave your child here and go because we cannot prove that he has authorization. You have all the paperwork, but how can we know that you have authorization to carry this child out of the country? And I'm like, authorization meaning my child. I need authorization to take my child out of the country. His father does not need to give me authorization. What do you mean? Oh my God. And they kept doing that. The boss of that place came and he was like, no, this wasn't right, we're sorry. He actually apologized, which is what I'm grateful for. But imagine after 3 hours of me and my son, both of us crying and crying. He actually was told there's a woman and her child crying at the office. And so he came already like aware that he was walking into like it was a whole hellhole. Okay, it was a hell show. It was just horrible. I was crying, my son was crying. Now I'm yelling at them. People are making my child cry. Look at this. Why would you do that? We've tried. I did everything right. I went to the embassy. I got everything right. And now I'm calling my friend all the way in Rwanda because we still have another day to go because we are gonna leave here late and blah 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 blah. And then by the time we cross the Ugandan country to get all the way to the Rwandese border and go through all that, I'm not even sure the bus company still has a place for me on the next bus because I missed the immediate next bus and I had to wait for the other one. Well, anyway, eventually all things worked out and we went to Rwanda and it was beautiful. I really love Rwanda. And while we were in Rwanda, my dad went to the immigration in Nairobi and got even more paperwork, which he sent by mail or something. And then we went to the Kenyan embassy too in Rwanda to get all appropriate letters and whatever, which we were like, I just don't want that drama coming back into Kenya, okay? And I'm not leaving my child at the Ugandan border or whatever. I don't want to be told, okay, just leave your child here, you know? So I was like, okay, what else do we need? What else can we do? Let's get appropriate letters or something that says, this is my child, that this is his documentation, this is the right documentation. If it's any missing paperwork, let's get all of it. And so we did that, and then traveling back was very smooth. We did not have any cases of being held back or being asked who this is, and my son being questioned about who the person he's traveling with is. I don't know what your own travel experiences are, but man, mine have been some type of way, you know. I have had experiences and a half that just will have you shaking. Oh man, but that was an experience that I really enjoyed. It actually made me know a lot about like traveling with my child because it was our first time, me and him traveling alone outside the country on our own, which made it easier for the other times that we had to travel, not even outside the country, but even within the country. I always just decided from now on, I'm just going to make sure I have all his papers with me. Everything. Original copies. Even here in the US when we travel, I carry everything with me. I'm just like, I don't want anybody to have a reason to stop us and then their reason is actually justified because I don't have any documentation. So I usually travel, and it's risky, but that puts some fear of God in me. Like, wow, they could easily have made me leave my child there. No, I don't know if any of you have ever experienced that, but also somebody told me it was probably that they wanted me to give something and I didn't. Like, you know, a bribe. When I say give something, some people might understand, some might not. Like, they probably just wanted me to bribe and I just didn't. And so they just made my life harder and harder. So the other thing is, as much as I was living in East Africa for a long time, I was still a foreigner, okay? So I was still considered a foreigner. So I still had to do the same paperwork that I do even here in the US as a foreigner. So that also makes people to think that people who are not straight, you know, people who are corrupt, to think that this is their opportunity to make some money off of you. And it's not right. I've had that experience even in renewing my student. I had the same experience when I was renewing my student pass in Kenya. At some point, I went to the Kenyan immigration office. I think I even posted it at some point. I posted it. It was so frustrating because I was applying through my school. So our school used to do it for us, actually. So you submit all your documentation to the school's international office, and then the school international student officer is the one who'll take it to the embassy, to the immigration, and then you just have to pick it up when it's ready. And there was a time it just took so long until it was expiring, and now the school was sending me emails telling me, hey, if you don't get that paper, you'll have to leave the country. Imagine, I have to leave the country, yet it's the country I grew up in, but because I had always been a foreigner, even growing up there, I was always a foreigner. So even here, it didn't count that you've lived in that country for all that time. It doesn't matter. You gotta have papers, right? And so they sent me emails that they cannot legally be in charge of me, because when you're a student in a country, you are basically in the care of that school. Even if I was there with my parents, I was not in their care legally, like immigration wise or whatever, status wise, immigration status wise. I was in the care of the school that had vouched for me that I was a student with them. And so they don't want to get into trouble with the government that they are allowing students who do not have papers in their school. And it's a long story, guys, because even despite having grown up there, I now became an adult, over 21. No, I think it was over 18. As soon as I hit that, no, I think it was 21. As soon as I hit 21, I stopped being their dependent. And that now made it that I had to get my own documentation. And I was already a student, so it just made sense to now get student visa, because I was not yet working at the time. So I just had to get a student visa. And so that's where this whole drama comes from, where I'm an international student in a country where I grew up in, but because of the legalities around paperwork and status and being in a country that's not your country, it doesn't matter that you speak the language, it doesn't matter that you grew up there, it doesn't matter that you went to school there, it doesn't matter that this is the country that you know. You still gotta go through the same process, because you're now an adult, you're no longer under your parents' care. So even you now, you need to file for yourself and go through the same process that your parents went through to get their own papers. I'm telling you. And so now we were at a point where now I'm back to square zero. I went to the immigration to collect those documents. I was like, okay, they told me what to do. My school told me, like, they were really good. Daystar is a really good school when it comes to immigration stuff. They told me what to do, where to go, who to go to. So I carry myself and I go. I was there an entire day. Nothing was moving. Nobody was calling my name. I had a ticket. I went to the counter. The first person spoke to me. They told me to wait. I sat down and waited, and boom, I stayed there almost an entire day. And so that just became ridiculous, because I went back there twice, to a point where now somebody came right up to me and told me, it's like these people who just work, we don't have them maybe in the US, but in African countries you have people who work, who do side businesses where they apply for people on behalf of people, or they'll move things for you. You just pay them something extra. They're not legally, like, they're not hired by the government to do that. They just they just hang around there, and if you're struggling, they'll tell you what to do. So he was like, oh, they probably just want you to pay something small. I'll call somebody to talk to you. And when the person came to talk to me, they said the same thing. The person who works there, he was like, oh yeah, this is your case. If you give something small, you'll see it move so fast. Because I kept moving from one office to the other, coming back and sitting in the waiting area, going up and down. And do you know that a few days later, I go back again to that office, and do you know that my thing was ready? My passport had been ready for like a month. My visa had already run through a month. It had been approved a month before that. Which is so crazy, because now I'm losing out on a month of status, because you guys just kept my passport under a pile of documents somewhere. Can you imagine that? I actually thought about it the other day. Can you imagine being a foreigner for your entire life? That's what I have been. It helped that my parents were working, so I didn't feel it for the entire time I was a child. But now I became an adult, and now I had to experience the same thing. And yeah, I've been a foreigner all my life. It saves me a lot of time because I used to spend so much time on lashes. Is I do my mascara. After I do my mascara, see, it looks really good. I will put the lash glue like an eyeliner right there. So it just looks like an eyeliner. When it's tacky, all I do is to just put the lash. It saves me so much time. Oh my god, you have no idea. I can do it in my sleep. Knocking on wood that today does not embarrass me just because I say that on camera. But as I make sure I bring it as close as possible to the lash line, like an eyeliner. You can see what I'm doing here. Bring it as close as possible to the line without it crossing over to the lower line. Hi! Does it look good? I feel like it's coming out perfectly. Once that glue dries, we'll just stick it to the lashes a little bit better. And then we're good. I like it.
Deposit a little bit. Just a little bit.